Hello, my name is Carissa, and today I am recording a tutorial for making APA 7 style bar charts with error bars using our statistical software. So before we do anything, we're going to go ahead and load the packages that we'll be using, and then I'm going to set my working directory. And then the next thing we're going to do is load our data set. The data set that I'm using is a publicly available data set on Kaggle that has lifestyle and well-being data. So it has information from over 15,000 survey respondents on about 24 attributes describing how people live their lives. So things related to health and well-being generally. So from there, I can go ahead and check the import and just look at the first few rows. So we have a variety of different variables related to health and well-being, such as, your fruit and veggies intake, daily stress, daily steps, etc. And today we'll be focusing on the number of weekly meditations. So next, I'm just going to go ahead and reorder age as a factor just to make it easier later on. But we can go ahead and describe our data to see what it looks like. So this is just a summary of all of the variables in the data set. We have the number of respondents, we have the averages for each variable, the standard deviation, and then other descriptive information. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and select the variables that we will be using to do the bar chart. And as I mentioned, we're interested in the number of weekly meditations, and we're going to look at how that varies by the age group of the respondents. So now, since we're interested in those two variables, we can go ahead and do describe by, which means that we are describing the number of weekly meditations by the age groups available in the data set. So for example, now we have information specifically for people ages 21 to 35. There are about 6,000 respondents in this group, and the average number of weekly meditations is about 6. So the next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and create the error bars that we'll use when we plot the data. So we start by grouping by that age variable, and then we can now summarize by the groups we just created to compute the mean, the standard deviation, and then use the n to then compute the upper bound and lower bound for our 95% confidence interval if we want to use that for our error bars. So if we run that, now we get a nice table where we can see the 4 age groups that we have. We can see the average number of weekly meditations, the standard deviation, the number of respondents, and then our confidence interval information. And if you wanted to, you could also, if you wanted to compute the standard error and use that for the error bars, you can totally do that as well. It's a similar process, but instead of computing the confidence interval, you'd just be computing the standard error, and it would look something like this. So the next thing that I'm going to do is actually plot the information. So we are going to plot error bars with the 95% confidence interval. So I'm using that this table that I just created as our data set. And we're going to plot age by mean. Or in other words, we're going to put age on the x-axis and we're going to put mean, the average number of weekly meditations, on the y-axis. And then I have some just information, changing the colors and adding some labels. This theme APA is helpful for doing some of the work and making an APA chart, but there are still some other necessary adjustments, such as bolding the titles of the X and Y axis, as well as expanding the grid to remove any breaks between the plots and the axes. So if we go ahead and run this, we can see here that we have a nice APA chart. We have age in different groups on the x-axis, and we have the average number of weekly meditations on the y-axis. So based on this, plot alone, we can speculate that since we also included the 95% confidence interval, that this age group of 51 or more appears to have a greater number of average weekly meditations compared to the other groups. If we wanted to export this data, we can copy the image, or we can export and save it and use it however we'd like. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching.